Now, Chinese soldiers have made a major attempt at grabbing Indian territory on the south bank of the Pangong Lake in an area that's not been disputed in the past like some other regions. The Indian Army has moved into these areas. We control the hilltops over here, and the Chinese have now reacted to the Indian action. They say, "We solemnly request the Indian side to immediately withdraw its illegally crossing troops, strictly control and restrain its frontline troops, earnestly abide by its commitments, and avoid further escalation of the situation. The Chinese military is taking necessary countermeasures and will pay close attention to the developments and resolutely safeguard China's territorial sovereignty." So this is a threat if ever there was one. But what's this situation really about? What's it a part of? First, let's pull out of the map and take a look at where the Chinese have intruded. The Depsang Plains to the north, then Galwan, where the clashes took place. After that, there's Hot Springs. There was some de-escalation, not enough. Then there was Gogra. There was expectation of a de-escalation, but the Chinese didn't go back. The Fingers region in the north bank of the Pangong Lake, there were very heavy clashes here. In May, dozens of Indian soldiers were injured, and now this, the south bank of the Pangong Lake, which has now been occupied by Indian soldiers after the Chinese tried to grab territory. And this is the area, this is exactly what it looks like. The Chinese trying to move westwards in the direction of Thakung that you can see on the left of your screens. It's near that area where this latest standoff took place. What's this all about, the standoff? Well, India believes the line of actual control lies to the east. China believes the line of actual control lies to the west. The area in between, in the south bank of the Pangong Lake, and indeed the north bank as well, that's all disputed. As a result of the Chinese move, the Indian Army has physically occupied some of the areas that you see on your screen, which we believe is ours. Some Chinese soldiers remain in this area as well. Well, in just the last few hours, the Foreign Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, has responded. Let's listen in.
So, if you have two countries, two societies, 1 billion people each, with the history and culture that they have, it's very important that they reach some kind of understanding or equilibrium between them. This is a practical world. I mean, if a country is going to get more powerful, we're going to see its influence in areas, in geographies we have not seen before. We're going to see activities and capabilities that we have not seen before. Now, we will see that from China, and I dare say in some areas they will see it of us. So how do we, this modus vivendi between India and China, I actually say in my book that this is extremely consequential for both countries and actually for the rest of the world.
Well, joining us now for their views on what exactly is happening, General Bikram Singh, former Army Chief, will also be joined by General V.P. Malik in a little while from now. I'm also joined by Brahma Chalani, who's watching these developments very, very closely. General Bikram Singh, let me come to you first. Since we spoke, there are more details which are emerging. The Indian Army is now deep within that disputed zone. We command the area because we command the heights. Beijing has threatened retaliation. This being the case, where do you believe this is headed?
Right. Vishnu, if I can just take the liberty of first conveying my condolences and my, tribute to the former president. He was my supreme commander when I was the chief.
Yes, he was. Yes.
I met him on a number of occasions. It's a sad day today. And let me tell you that, whenever I met him, and I met him on a regular basis to brief him on what's going on, he always asked very penetrating questions, like you asked one now. Right, where are we headed, you said, with what has happened now? Getting on to your question, look, China may keep threatening, but one thing which has emerged from the incident of 29th, 30th night, one is that we are well prepared, Vishnu, as compared to what we were on the 15th of June. We are well prepared. Our intelligence system is far better because I know the inputs from ground that our soldiers have been able to detect, a suspicious activity based on which they had mobilized and gone and occupied certain heights and pushed the Chinese back and gone into their area as well. So from that point of view, our actions have been very good, far better than what we did earlier. It only goes to show that we are doing well. The second thing that emerges from this incident is that, I'm of the view that given the distrust that is rising by the day between both the countries, the space for diplomatic negotiations is contracting.
Right.
And this choking of that space, I think we'll have to look at now two tools. One, of course, the military pressure will have to go on. And then we've got to look at other pressure points on the economic front, perhaps take on some international measures.
Right. So I take the points that you're
pressure.
mentioning, General Bikram Singh. I just want to go across to General Malik and Brahma as well. General Malik, this is a situation which I believe we've not really been in, in a very long time. This is, the Indian Army taking very proactive action in moving deep within a disputed area, taking over the hilltops, China threatening retaliation, and we are sitting there in a position where this could escalate into a fight. Where do you see the local situation in South Pangong going?
I think it just shows our preparedness there. And that means that our boys are well prepared, they are well acclimatized, well equipped, and they have the reserves and they have the will to take them on. And they have preempted them in this area. I'm not sure whether this is part of their area or it is still a disputed area. But I think the Chinese need to know that our boys are capable of doing the same thing that their boys are doing.
Okay. Brahma Chelani, would you say that this is finally a proactive retaliation or counter move, call it what you may, by India, something that's been missing over the last several months?
Well, there are 2 points here. Soon after the June 15th clashes in the Galwan Valley, China launched a major build-up in all the border sectors and also began frenzied construction of new military infrastructure. In that period, within days of the June 15 clashes, satellite imagery showed that China had set up 2 new camps on the southern bank of Pangong Lake. So that intruded onto the southern bank of Pangong Lake in the days just after the June 15th clashes. The latest confrontation has happened because the Chinese forces have tried to enlarge their footprint of aggression. That has forced India to react. The second point is the timing of the latest PLA intrusion attempt. It occurred just hours after President Xi Jinping wrapped up a 2-day national meeting on Tibet by prescribing new policy directives on securing the border with India and ensuring Tibet's stability and security. It couldn't have been a coincidence that Xi's address leads to prompt military action by the PLA to enlarge its aggression. So I think the timing is very significant.
Okay. General Singh, how important is it for us as a country, our political leadership, our military leadership, to now stand the course? Because we have ventured onto a rather aggressive path, and that's what being an army is all about. You have to take risks when the time is right. There's been a decision to take a certain element of risk. This being the case, how important is it for the system to actually back the military steps on the ground?
Look, Vishnu, firstly, let me tell you the Indian military is well prepared as far as taking on the Chinese is concerned. And I have brought it out earlier on your channel also that it is more defensive in nature and with limited offensive capability that we have of today. So from that point of view, we are well poised. And General Malik also brought out that we are well prepared, our people are well poised, they are totally motivated to take on any challenges. That is it. Just a word about the timing. In addition to what Mr. Chelani said, I fully endorse his views. I also feel that perhaps what may have peeved the Chinese leadership is also the move of our naval ships that have gone into South China Sea. And it is very threatened now because we were earlier containing this entire conflict basically along the line of actual control, and that also in the western sector. But now with our forays in South China Sea, ostensibly we are trying to enlarge the arena of the conflict. So
Okay.
that again may be something which is to be taken into consideration.
Okay.
But here, just a point I want to give before you pass on to another panelist is that Vishnu, we've got to look at the strategy, whatever strategy we adopt, from the point of view that we got to stand on our own feet. We got to base our plans on our own combat power and not be looking at someone to come and help us. I mean, we got to be keeping that in mind. Otherwise, we might go wrong, because there's a history of certain powers that have not performed.
Okay, so
well
you're
with
raising
regard
the
to their
larger
allies in
point
the last 10 years.
about the United States. Let's just focus for now, because that of course is the larger question. But on the ground situation, General Malik, I think the question I was trying to ask is this: that we've taken a path. It's absolutely critical now for the army to have the support of the establishment. We have our boys who are exposed in a high altitude situation where India has responded militarily after taking a lot of this Chinese aggression for months. How important is it for us to stay the course, which means that our political leadership has to match the military leadership step for step?
Firstly, I want to make an operational point here. Whatever has happened here, south of Pangong, I'm still more worried about Depsang plains. And I still feel that we should not be only focusing on this area. I don't know, tomorrow something may happen in Depsang, which is more critical at the moment, looking at our Daulat Beg Oldi position, as well as the highway which is going to Daulat Beg Oldi and beyond. So one should be looking at the entire Eastern Ladakh front and not just be looking at south of Pangong, where this incident has taken place. Secondly, I said about the troops, I have no doubt that they are very motivated, they are well acclimatized, well equipped. Now, as far as the ground situation is concerned, I believe for the military, the agreement of 93 as well as the LAC, so-called LAC, I'm calling it so-called because the Chinese themselves don't seem to be following that, that is as good as dead. So the military has to act whatever is happening on the ground. But as far as the political establishment, diplomatic establishment is concerned, for them, LAC as well as agreement may still be alive, and they can continue talking about that.
Yep.
So while we are continuing to talk to Chinese about the LAC, about the agreements and all those issues, but as far as the military is concerned, they have to now face a situation as if there is no agreement and the LAC is not being followed by the Chinese.
Yeah.
And for that, we have to be prepared all along the Eastern Ladakh front, also in other sectors also.
Yeah. Brahmachalani, I think General Malik makes a great point. The Chinese, with impunity threaten the LAC, I mean, on a constant basis. They've been threatening the LAC everywhere. Gogra, Hot Spring, Galwan, Depsang, North Bank, South Bank. This being the case, do we necessarily need to view these localized potential confrontations through the prism of the LAC, because the LAC effectively doesn't exist?
Well, what has happened is that China has withdrawn the LAC in Ladakh. It has achieved its territorial gains that it set out to accomplish, is now seeking to wear India out in order to present a fait accompli. Make no mistake, the costs that India has sought to impose on China so far have proved inadequate to make Beijing end its aggression. And India's options are narrowing. The longer India has waited, the harder it has become to militarily push back the intruding Chinese forces and restore status quo ante. So if India is not going to end up validating China's forcible change of the LAC, it must begin inflicting substantive costs on China. Imposing significant economic and diplomatic costs, coupled with the application of coercive military pressure, holds the key. And I think this operation over the weekend is an exercise in applying coercive military pressure. The only way China will roll back its aggression is if India begins exacting mounting costs that make China's territorial gains unbeneficial to whole.
Right.
India has trade and diplomatic leverage. It has battle-hardened armed forces skilled in mountain warfare. These assets place India in a position to impose calibrated but escalating costs on China.
Right.
And without such a course, China would become a bigger threat for India.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I'd like to thank all of you. As we wrap up this debate, let's just not for a moment forget about those young men of the Indian Army in defensive positions now, potentially waiting for a Chinese move in an area deep inside a disputed area, under orders to take command of hillsides, hilltops, to get a favorable position in a situation which seems incredibly fraught at this stage. Perhaps India and China very much on the brink, locally perhaps not even at the regional level, but let's never forget those young men over there right now as we speak on the broader strategic issues. Thank you very much indeed.